BoatLife Live. Please give a big hand to these three burlies. The Atlantic Flyers, missing one.
Thank you very much.
So welcome to BoatLife Live 2022. We've got someone missing, we should first say. Couldn't make it here.
At Cy Berry, we are still speaking to Cy, just to reassure you.
Hello, Cy. Sorry you're not here. So take it away.
Okay. So first of all, on behalf of the team, we got Sonny here, we got Chris, Cy, who's in Cyprus, and he sends his love, and myself, Phil. So we're here to talk about our little campaign. We did a little bit of rowing, and I gather we've got some rowers in the audience here, so we're probably going to get some tricky customers with some questions out there. So do you mind if I just say a little bit about the background?
Absolutely. It's why, where, how, when, do it.
Got you.
So should we start off with a little video?
We've got a little video here just to give you a little bit of a background view of exactly what that feels like. Perfect. Roll video.
Flyers made it all the way to Nelson's Dockyard here in Antigua after 36 days and 24 minutes.
Well, there's a taste of exactly what it was like. It's obviously important that you take your shirts off at any moment possible. Keep them on, keep them on. What an incredible journey. You rowed across the Atlantic, all four of you in this incredible boat. So, why?
There's always a good why. For us, I guess I'm the person at fault here. My youngest daughter, Isla, when she was 22 months old, she got diagnosed with leukemia. And that was a hugely life-changing event. As a father, watching my own flesh and blood, walk this tightrope of life and death, it was awful, a harrowing experience, and I felt incapable of doing anything positive to help the situation. But Isla made an incredible recovery, and we were supported by incredible friends and families and charities along the way. And that really inspired me to think of something to do to try and give back to some of the charities. And I realized that potentially I could use my love for endurance sport to give back. And also as a way of trying to connect with my daughter, try and understand the journey she went through when she suffered with leukemia. So I wanted to pick something which would be a little bit dangerous, a little bit risky. The outcome would be far from certain, and there'd be a lot of pain and suffering along the way. So the idea was that I'd pick 5 challenges which would build up over 5 years, getting tougher and tougher each year, and raise money for Starlight, a charity which supported my daughter, supported the family through it. So over the 5 years, they started off with running events, definitely my comfort zone. I remember year 3, which was a 100-mile run. I thought, I think I've got the trajectory a little bit wrong here. But for year 5, it had to be a big one. And it certainly wasn't going to be just me. I needed some like-minded individuals, people who I could rely on, and people who were up for it. So the year 5 challenge was selected, and that was to row across the Atlantic. I'm trying to do it with 3 other Air Force colleagues and turn ourselves inside out for an incredible charity. So that's how we got to the start line of the Talisker Whisky Challenge.
And of course, you've just touched on it. You're all Air Force, working hard. How did that work, balancing work and these challenges?
Yeah, it was difficult. We started the campaign. Well, actually, we started the campaign with four set of individuals, and because work took its toll, people get deployed, sent to different places. 2 of them ended up pulling out, which meant that I got a slot on the team, and Sai, who's not with us here today, actually got another slot on the team as well. However, it still wasn't easy because when I joined the team, Phil was out in the States, working out there. Chris was in Lincolnshire. I was in the north of Scotland, and when Sai joined us, he was out in Cyprus. So it was quite firstly a diverse group, but also spread across the world, really, and not necessarily just across the UK. So it was tough, which meant that training generally had to be fairly individual, and it was only rare occasions where we got together. And I think it was September before we did the challenge was the first time that all 4 of us met, because some of us didn't even know each other before we started.
Was there any kind of selection that you needed? I mean, obviously you were in the forces, so that's selection enough. But did you have any kind of bar that they had to, apart from being able to take their shirts off?
So, you were relieved we're definitely keeping them on after a couple of weeks in an all-inclusive hotel. I think we can't live up to those photos you might have seen. But no, it was like-minded individuals. They happened to be absolute monsters on the erg, but that was just a coincidence. But they had to be someone who could believe in the vision, believe in what we were doing, and when the going got tough, just knowing that we could trust each other. So that was
apart
it.
from being amazing on the Concept 2 rowing machine, any rowing backgrounds at all?
So surprisingly, amongst the team, none of us are river rowers. So very, very little rowing experience. I think, Sonny, you'd done a course. CS, you may have done a basic course as well. But fortunately, ocean rowing doesn't rely on pure technique.
No, well, there's a lot more. There's a lot of currents. There's a lot of amazing amount of preparation. And that little red arrow may look very simple, but that's 3,000 nautical miles. Talk us through this.
Hi guys, yeah, so the big challenge is on a 28-foot rowing boat. I believe there's one here today with some of the other one of the other boats in the show. It's a 28-foot rowing boat. It's got two sleeping cabins, one at each end. The routine for us was 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and that was what we set out to do as it's regularly regarded as the routine of choice, really, for to keep us rowing. But you do that for as long as it takes to get yourself across 3,000 miles. It's 1.5 million oar strokes with ideally 6,000 calories a day. So you don't really have to worry about what you're eating. It's just about getting some food inside you and burning it off. You're up against Mother Nature, so whatever the ocean can throw at you for the year. And you heard amazing stories of Tom Cunliffe there talking about big waves and big seas. But yeah, expecting to see 20 to 60 foot waves, burning off 6,000 calories a day, 12 kilos of weight loss, and 4 men. And the question we always get asked about is ablutions on a boat. Just imagine 4 men and 1 little bucket, and that's how we administered ourselves going to the bathrooms. So that's it, really. It's about getting 4 of us across. It's a physical challenge, undoubtedly, but actually the big thing that we learnt from it really is the teamwork side of stuff. So, understanding, as Tom Cunliffe mentioned earlier, about what your main focus is and how you keep yourself motivated, keep yourself driving through 36 days for us. Trying to keep yourself in a happy space, trying to keep the boat moving at all times across the water. So it's about having that vision, and Phil and his story obviously gave us something to unite around, and raising money and awareness for Starlight. So that was us, the big drive to get ourselves across 3,000 miles.
What was the record before you went for this?
So the record was 29 days. I don't know the exact number of hours, but 29 days for a 4. And we set out to, our motivation really was to get to start line, to be ready to win the race, and to give the best presentation of ourselves as possible. But when you get to the start line, it's just about got to race that year's race. So every year, obviously, the winds are different, and the years than the 29-day was set. The guys weren't part of the Talisker race, so they were independent races as well. But they were able to set off when they wanted to set off, so they could look at the weather, look at the wind conditions, and set off for that. And then, obviously, if you've got a fast year, you get blown across quite quickly because, although we're rowing pretty hard, the wind is a massive factor.
So we should explain, just shortly, off the African coast, you start picking up the trade winds, which, from the old days of trade, the ships would leave the Mediterranean, Northern Europe, and hook into these wonderful these easterly trade winds, blowing you over to the islands. And obviously there's a little bit of current in there as well. How much, apart from just the straight rowing, how much navigation and positioning, course positioning, or do you just have a line and you row as hard as you can?
Well, from the start position where we are, Gomera, exactly as you just spoke about, we had to come quite a way south, first of all. So the first week pretty much was heading in a southerly direction, probably about 220, before we then pick up the trade winds. Or so that's the idea. Unfortunately, this year it was pretty poor on trade winds, so we spent a lot of the time being told that they were coming tomorrow for them never really to arrive, which unfortunately means you have to do a lot of rowing.
And can I ask, does the race start on a day, or can you pick your own start day?
No, not at all. So something we haven't spoken about, this is part of the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge. So there were 36 teams doing this, and the way they set it up is that every team leaves in, I think it's 6 minutes intervals or 3 minute intervals, where everyone sets off on the same day. So you all technically have the same conditions to start with, but clearly the course that you take will then dictate how the rest of your race goes. So there were some teams that we had that pretty much went direct track straight towards Antigua. That looked brilliant for them for the first 2.5 weeks, and then clearly they started hitting some bad weather conditions.
Could you see their positions?
We could. So we had a beacon on board to be able to give ourselves some internet access. So we had a good conversation about this beforehand, and it comes back to what Chris was saying about understanding what your goals are. And we had a bit of a chat with an Air Force adventurous training instructor before we left of, do we want to look at other teams? Do we want to know where they are? Initially, we all thought we did, but then realized there's not much you can do about it once you're out there. So we elected not to, at least for the first week or so. We then started picking up where other teams were after that when we succumbed to the urge to know where we were in the race. And it was positive and negative at times. When we had a hard day and we did well, that was great. When we had a hard day and we didn't do so well and other teams did better, it was not really something we wanted to do, and that's when we moved away from it for periods of time. But we could see we were doing reasonably well, around about 4th place, and we actually finished up 2nd in the end of the race. I think we're going to talk about it in a little bit. We ended up having a race pretty much across the whole of the Atlantic with another team, which you'd think on a month-long race is something you'd like to avoid, and you can come in a few days apart, but it came down to, well, it nearly came down to minutes of who started first. It would have dictated who actually won, because we were going to come across the line at the same time. But luckily, I think we managed to pick them by a few hours or so.
So I think we've got a picture of you on the high seas. What was life on board like?
So it was the easiest routine and the hardest at the same time. Life is so simple. Everything which bogs you down in normal life gets stripped away. No emails, unless you want to check via a beacon. No one's calling you. Your only responsibility is to eat, sleep, and row. It's so simple, but brutal at the same time. We did approximately 250 shifts back to back. So you do 2 hours on the oars and then 2 hours rest. And that rest is made up of eating, it's made up of ablutions, any chores you've got to do, getting your head down and then setting your alarm for 10 minutes before. So realistically, you're getting about an hour 20, hour 30 if it's gone well. And just knowing that you had 250 of these before you were done, that messed with your head. So that was brutal. And I think you had to really just break it down into little bite-sized chunks. It was, how do you eat as an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. You couldn't think about the 1,000 miles to go. You could only think about maybe that day, sometimes just that shift. Or when it was really bad, how am I going to get to the next water break in 15 minutes' time or something like that? So the simplest routine, but the most punishing at the same time.
Now, I've asked this question to all our adventurers here in BoatLife Live 2022. Highlights and lowlights. Let's get the lowlights out of the way first. What was your worst moment?
I'll go
Plural.
for lows then, why not? I think there are a couple really. So the first week was pretty bad. So we had in our minds, with the record being 29 days or so, we thought the crossing would be about 30 days, maybe 32 days. That would be quite nice. We were kind of hoping for that without saying it to people before we started. And then we realised that there wasn't really going to be those trade winds setting in for at least the first half of our race, or so the models were predicting, which meant that we were now staring down the barrel of 35, maybe 40 days. That's a week extra at sea. And I think as we're going through the adjustment to life at sea, going through the adjustment to the 2 hours on, 2 hours off, I had a bit of seasickness. I think everyone was feeling a bit out of their usual depth. So that was pretty bad the first week before we just succumbed to the relentlessness of the challenge. And then the final 48 hours were actually the worst, or at least the 24 hours that started off the 48 hours. And the reason for that is we were still in the race with 5 in a row, another team that was out there. So after you've been rowing for 5 weeks, you just want to come in nice and easy towards the end. We didn't get that luxury because we got rolled into a race, which we didn't really foresee. I think this is, how far out was this? Oh, this is 48 hours out. We end up hitting some bad weather.
Here you are. Just
that's us Atlantic Flyers, 5 in a row below. So we hit some bad weather, and we actually got headwinds when 5 in a row were still working with the trade winds. They put in a really strong shift for 24 hours, and they got ahead of us. So now we're left with 24 hours to go and trying to pull back to get into second position, but also to finish the race. So those were definitely the low points for the team, and you could see that go around the boat, as all of us were definitely feeling it at certain times.
Well, when there's a low, there needs to be a high. That's your turn.
So the high was came at different points for different people. So, as Sonny mentioned there, you had lows of trying to push ourselves through the race. For me, the low point was in the first 48 hours, just as Phil mentioned, about trying to understand the enormity of the challenge and staring down the barrel of 200 odd shifts, and especially at night when the darkness came in and your world, it's gone from a 28-foot boat just down to a couple of feet in front of you. So the lows were then magnified by the highs as well, and the highs were undoubtedly the nature we got to saw. So we saw on our video we had a couple of dolphins and bits and pieces up there. We had whales come through, and that was absolutely magical. Seeing nature come through. We had some amazing experiences. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I set out was see what nature could throw at you. So I've grown up sailing all my life, but I've never sailed the Atlantic, and there's definitely something I wanted to see. And we had these amazing storms come through us, and big squalls. And one of the things I looked at, I remember, is that we were being blown along at a good rate of knots when the trade winds finally did find us. And I could see these squalls coming through in the distance, and I thought to myself, well, I haven't had a shower in quite a while, so this rain shower is going to come through, it's going to hit me hard. So it was myself and Si up on deck, and I thought, right, I'm going to strip off naked, I'm going to lather myself up and have a good shower whilst this rain shower, because you can it's about reframing whilst you're out there. You know, either look at this rain shower and go, that's going to be horrid, I'm going to get really wet and minging, and it's going to be disastrous getting wet, or you can go, hey, I'm going to have a great shower, it's going to be amazing. So we've reframed it into this enjoyable experience. Stripped off naked, lathered up. Si looked at this rain shower, thought, oh, probably need a poo. Can I fit this poo in time? So he jumps on the bucket, and this rain shower came through, and it hit us hard. And then just behind the rain shower was a squall, and the winds picked up, so maybe 40 odd knots. And it knocked the boat sideways onto these waves. So the waves were pretty big because it's 40 knot winds, but they'd all flattened out, and the power behind them had picked up. So I was there naked, having my wash. Boat goes sideways. First thing we do is call Sonny out on deck, who has just got his head down for his shift, so he came out naked. And then we jumped on the oars, and we start trying to pull the boat round. And it's very difficult to do because when you slide onto the waves, you can't get the oars into the water.
It's very dangerous to be side on, isn't it?
Absolutely, because the waves are going to come over you, and the boat's only 5 foot wide, so it's going to rock you over. And so yeah, we then trying to put it round. Phil wakes up from the sideways waves in the cabin, and he sticks his head out. It's like, anything I can do? whilst he's staring at Si, who's busily throwing his poo overboard. And we call him to knock the auto tiller off. So a little auto tiller that's extending and steering our way across. Anyway, so we knocked that off, and then and we managed to get ourselves onto the oars, get the boat round, so it's been blown downwind, and then we started to put some power down through the oars and get moving. The amazing point about that is that when the wind did catch us and we got the waves and the power behind the seas and the waves, we managed to start surfing the boat. And when you're doing 14 knots in a little rowing boat, going down a wave, just the most exhilarating experience I think I've had in a sailing boat or in a boat at all. So that was definitely.
And you still didn't have time to put your clothes on.
We're still start.
And ladies, we've got a picture of that coming up next. Well, no, happy memories, happy memories. So life on board sounds pretty challenging, sounds pretty amazing, both mentally and physically. Take us through to the next part of the race. I think we've got a picture of some celebrations going on here.
Yeah, so you spend 2 weeks in La Gomera in the Canary Islands before you start. So we hadn't seen our family for 2 weeks before we started the race, 5 weeks out there, so 7 weeks away, which unfortunately we're reasonably used to in the forces, but it was over Christmas, and there were definitely some lows over this period that we had away from them here. So we're all really looking forward to seeing the family. And you come around a headland as you get towards Nelson's Dockyard in Antigua. All the family are up there, at which point you've got the family cheering for you. There's flares going off up on the old fort. Clearly, this is us as we're crossing the line here as well. And I think the biggest thing was, as we finished, we didn't quite believe that we could stop rowing. I think they had to tell us about 5 times to put the oars down and celebrate, because you sure we're here now? So yeah, that was a celebration, and then you row in another 200 meters or so, and that's when you first get sight of your family properly. There's a walk back round, and that was just a fantastic experience. Going and seeing them again. You have to do a quick interview, which was probably the last thing we wanted to do at that stage, as we were all wobbling over the deck that they'd put us on, because none of us could walk on dry land anymore after the 36 days in a little rowing boat.
So you've totally lost your ability to balance yourself. You're still at sea when you're not at sea.
Absolutely that, yeah. So on the boat, we're perfectly fine, stable as anything. We could nip about up and down the boat as quickly as anything. But as soon as we got off, and we didn't anticipate this, we all pretty much fell over. So I think there might be some footage of us on the podium at the end, but we're kind of holding on to each other, not just because we're good mates, but because we couldn't physically stand up on our own anymore, I think, at that stage.
Now, looking at this amazing craft, how much confidence did you have in this boat and your equipment? And ladies and gentlemen, there is one of these boats. You come in through the entrance, turn left, up there with status code 14. Do go and have a look at it. But this is an amazing custom-built boat. You must have a lot of confidence under you.
Absolutely. I think we had a good understanding of the boat, a good appreciation when we started to row. But as you go on, and as you realise that this is the only thing that is keeping you alive, it's providing you fresh water, it's giving you shelter. It's quite a remarkable feat of engineering that you look back to the origins of ocean rowing and how they managed to do it in these wooden boats, and you think, wow, this thing, it takes the edge off it. It's still a brutal ordeal, but despite the swells, and there were some huge swells, despite, as it being pitch black at night, we had utter confidence in it. By the end of the race, I was in love with it. This thing had saved my life. It had given us all memories to last a lifetime. So yeah, enormous respect for it and an enormous admiration for it.
Well, you talk about the finish. This was your idea, your inspiration. You put this thing together with these amazing people. For you personally, and of course everybody did incredibly, you came together as a team. How did it feel for you personally, crossing that line and standing there with that flare in your hand?
So the race organisers do an incredible job. They make it so special. As Sonny suggested, you got super yachts, horns blaring. It's done fantastically. The location's incredible. So there's that, which is incredible. But for me, it was the end of a journey. My daughter was now cured of cancer. Enormous sense of relief. And it was relief as well, because I had feared, my biggest fear, was that we wouldn't get across. Something would go wrong technically, and it'd all be for nothing. But as it was the most wonderful end. You know, I could pick up and hold my daughter, and it just felt like this enormous circle had been complete. So yeah, wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
We rode the Atlantic. There's not many people that can say that, and that is quite a task, sponsored by Talisker. So, I mean, congratulations, seriously. Please, congratulations. Now, do we have any questions from the audience? I think that's, we're on to a little looping video, I think, next. Of course, you couldn't have done it without the sponsors. Let's just nip back to that other photograph. You know, briefly, just everybody here in the show, in the industry, we all help each other, look after each other. Anyone out there that can help, people like Katie McCabe, it is really important that we all look after each other and give icons like you the opportunity to be our heroes. So thank you very much to all your sponsors that made it happen. Let's have a look at this next video. So do we have any questions from the audience? I'm sure we do. Anything?
Gentlemen.
Sir.
We're about to do something incredible. It's not about me, it's so much bigger. It's about families, it's about little people like Isla.
So how do you look after your hands?
Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, I don't know about the other guys, but my hands are still a lot of blisters that are still healing on them. We had these things called bear grips, which helped quite a lot. So we'd alternate it. Variety, I'll be honest with you, is the key. So the hands fared okay, better than we thought. The thing that didn't fare so well was probably the backside, and that's the one that gets most of the abuse as you're going through all of it. So we had a variety of different seat pads that we all end up using. I think you got the most punishing butt routine going on, but yeah, there was quite a bit of pain for periods, and it's just sitting down the seat was the hardest bit. But the hands generally did okay. Once they start hardening up the blisters, you were in the right place.
All these things you wouldn't know, but I'm sure all that inside information is handed down after row after row.
So yes, I'm sure you won't mind me saying this. He was like the Princess and the Pea. His seat pad gradually got higher and higher as the row went on. At one point, I swear it was about 5 or 6 ply high, but very sensitive. Beautiful bottom, but very sensitive.
So any more sensitive questions? Sir? How much fresh water did you carry?
So the boat's amazingly well designed, but in the centre of the boat is a water maker. So you can see at the ends we've got solar panels on the ends of the boat, and so obviously you're going east to west, sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and so your solar panels charge at different points of the day, and you can flick them over. So it was one of the routines that we had to do was charge the batteries, but then once you've got your batteries up to voltage, then you just flick the water maker on. And that made it fresh water for you. I think the race rules also mandate you to carry 50 litres of water should your water maker break, and you've also got a hand pump water maker as well. But that is a vital bit of kit, and it's it's pretty tough to keep making water and do your routine when the weather really sets in. But yeah.
There you go. So what did you actually eat?
Yeah, pretty much everything we could. A lot of dried food, so probably trying to hit around, depending on your body mass, around 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. So half that was probably freeze-dried food, which would just rehydrate. And we just do that with standard temperature water and just let it happen throughout the day and just eat it when we had to. Otherwise, we had a 3-day rolling sort of meal pack or snack pack that we had on the side, which included nuts, chocolate bars. We had Velo Forte was a cycling company which have kind of fruit bars which were really good, which we supplemented things with. And we also had this nut butter made by a company called Resilient Nutrition, which I'd really recommend. It's kind of just a peanut butter in a tube, but they flavour it in different ways, and that gives you 500 calories for each time you do that. So we'd have a couple of those a day, and ultimately it was just trying to force the food in at any opportunity you possibly could. I think Phil didn't have any challenges with that because Phil likes to eat around 10,000 calories a day anyway, but the rest of us were definitely struggling.
Now, Phil, I've got a question for you. How much money did you raise for Starlight, and can we still donate, can we still get involved, and can we still back that charity?
Absolutely. So we set out with a target of trying to raise £50,000 for Starlight, and Starlight uses its money to provide hospital care for children who are seriously ill or terminally ill in hospital. And for us as a family, they sent us to Lapland. It was Isla's wish to go to Lapland, and they took the family there. So incredible. Galvanized the whole family, gave us something to look forward to. So we wanted to generate money so other children, other families could have that sort of support. So £50,000, and it'll mean that tens of families get supported through their darkest hours. If people did want to support, we would love them to visit our website, and that is it's AtlanticFlyers2021.com, and you can find out all about the story, the charity, the row, and there's a link to donate. And what we'll do, we've got some lovely little memorabilia which we'll put out front, and please help yourself, and if you're inspired, we'd love you to go along, have a look at the website and see if you'd like to donate.
Thank you. Now, well done. All of you have been an absolute inspiration. I'm absolutely loving talking to all these wonderful guests here at BoatLife. You have inspired another team. There are lots of ongoing amazing things going on here, and with their boat here, hoping to follow in your footsteps, we have another crew, and you've got a little surprise for them, and a little challenge by passing on, I think, this oar. So, status code 14, please step up. It's your turn next. Both up here for a chat, but you guys actually don't know each other very well.
Hi guys. So the last time I saw these guys was in La Gomera prior to the start of their race. There's a very famous bar over there called the Blue Marlin, and just before you're about to depart to sea, I think it's an old seafaring tradition that you go out and have a bit of a hoolie before you go. I managed to catch the guys before they got too far into that hoolie, and wish them the best of luck. And this is the first time I've seen them all since they went out and did it. So for us, it's quite a great thing to see them. It's an honour to receive what I think is going to be the oar that they're going to present to us, and we'll carry that forward. So we're going to use this oar to row ourselves across the same route in the same race. Guys, I'd like to say that we're going to beat that record, but we're slightly older. We've had slightly few more injuries and operations and bits and pieces, but we're going to give it our best. So thank you very much, guys.
Now, how about that? Handing the mantle over. And we'll have a short break, just a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back on stage with status code 14 to find out everything about what they are intending. So let's have a big round of applause for the Atlantic Flyers. Thank you so much. Lots of top tips being held over here. So we'll be going again in a few minutes.